Hey guys, Magna back here for another replay cast from Legacy of the Void. Let's take a look at a game between PseudoRandom and BNet player, who's this Terran. I don't know actually who this is, but PseudoRandom obviously a pretty high level player, so it's got to be some caliber of competition for him. So this should be a pretty high level replay. Again, I don't usually watch these before I cast them because I kind of want to be surprised and experience it the same way that you guys would, rather than having too much overbearing commentary on it. But we're going to see a TVZ here today, which I don't believe we've really seen too much of. So PseudoRandom oddly rallying his drone here. I'm not quite sure if he was used to the earlier timings, but he's going to be going hatch first. And more importantly, this is hatch first before the Overlord is done. So there was an extractor trick done here to try to squeeze out that extra drone. The Overlord does finish, and then he adds on a couple more drones here. So this is probably about the fastest possible hatchery you can get. And going back to the Terran base, this is just going to be, I don't believe, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is not gas first. I should have been paying more attention to that, but the gas and barracks timings almost seem like irrelevant as far as one being canceling out the other. You can basically get both of these at the same time if you want to, and they won't really slow down your build too much. So kind of interesting little nuances here. And BNet player, the Terran, saving up for a command center right now. Not rallying a worker down quite yet though, so looks like he wanted to squeeze in a depot before getting that command center. But this looks like a Reaper opener, so I'm expecting a Reaper to come down here in just a sec, and he decides to go Marine, so that's a little unusual. But maybe just going to go for a faster factory. Maybe going to try for Cyclones? I'm not sure yet. I haven't actually seen a lot of openers in this matchup yet. PseudoRandom, by the way, not getting gas quite yet, so his speed is going to be a little bit late. And this will give the opportunity for a Cyclone opener to actually do something, because I think we're not going to see Cyclones too much in this matchup, considering they are very vulnerable to Speedlings. And if they just get speed, then it makes the Cyclone pretty worthless pretty fast. But we're not seeing that faster speed yet from the Zerg. There's a gas finally coming down to 2 gases. Oh, never mind, he just cancels one to, I guess, get one at his natural? That was a little unusual as well. But this could look weird to a Terran too. Like, you could have 2 gases, maybe they only scan 1 base, and maybe they only see 1 gas, kind of underestimate it. But there's all sorts of weird stuff that the Zerg could do as well. So we could see open with Ravager, we could see all kinds of weird stuff happen. But yeah, Terran actually grabbing a tech lab here, so this is going to be a Cyclone opener. And he may bring his Marines, he may not, but this is going to be strange because, again, you're kind of playing in there a little bit blind, considering if the Zerg opened with like hatch, gas, and then pool, they would have speed done by this time the Cyclone would start getting on the map, and that would be very, very messy. It's also possible that these guys are just testing out build orders, and this might not just be a ladder game, and I'm not totally sure just because this did come in a replay pack that I just grabbed, so it's not really clear as far as what status this was. Zerg player going for a lair though. It's a pretty fast lair. 3rd base is also on the way. But the lair coming down this quickly is still pretty unusual, especially for this matchup. Cyclone's going to finish here in just a second. We're going to see how much he's able to do with that. 3rd CC on the way as well, so maybe a little bit of a safety play. Cyclone's going to start getting on the map, but I can't stress enough that speed could be done by this stage on a fairly normal opener. So you can see it's just barely starting here for the Zerg, but by the time the Cyclone got to the base, if the Zerg was mining gas a little bit faster, this Cyclone would be 100% dead. There'd be no real chance for it to live very long against like maybe 8 Speedlings. But I guess this is just going to be a unit that will basically punish greed, but I think it's such a huge risk considering it's 150 gas. He's checking the 3rd base here. He does see a 3rd is down. Cyclone's going to start heading in here, maybe pick off an Overlord. He's trying to target it, but this is so funny because he can't actually see it. He could see it from the high ground here, but he didn't have the range to lock on, so that Overlord in quite the weird position. You can see the Cyclone does quite outrange the Spines, and it's just kind of AFKing, and it does get surrounded by Zerglings, and this is normally what you'd expect to happen. So basically, the Cyclone killed 1 Zergling, which is 25 minerals, and he lost it. And the Cyclone itself costs 150 gas, so that's a really expensive investment to lose just to Zerglings. So Scan comes down here. Looks like he does see just the main base. He does see the Spire coming down, so this is looking a little bit Heart of the Swarm / Wings of Liberty-esque with all the tech here. Only exception being that there's no real Baneling Nest coming down. For the Terran player, getting those Hellions on the map is pretty normal, as they do actually get killed pretty quickly here. So he's got a little bit of a problem on his hands, considering he lost his Hellion, he lost his Cyclone, And that's why I think those openers are really not going to be too viable against Zerg. You're probably just going to have fairly normal openers until we see what the new Terran unit is. But one Marine getting curious out here gets wasted. Kind of unfortunate for him, but kind of being the brave guy to see if the Lings are sticking around. But those Lings don't actually do too much. He does just decide to focus on the bunker rather than run by, maybe try to kill some workers or something. There is a couple of mines burrowed here, as he does know that mutas are a possibility, and they are on the way right now. So if those mutas happen to fly into those mines, which we can see the rally points here for the Zerg are being sent straight to the natural, and oddly enough straight to these mines. So we could see some pretty hilarious hits come down here in just a second. Now what I'm curious about is if the Cyclone really has a role in this matchup beyond maybe being a harassment tool. It honestly kind of seems like Terran didn't really get a whole lot of tools to fight Zerg. And mainly, I think just because Mech is already maybe the strongest in this matchup, as well as Bio is also viable in this matchup, so maybe they're thinking that they don't need to do a whole lot with this unit. I guess things like the Banshee speed upgrade, stuff like that might be useful, but considering this is going to be Bio, we're not going to see a whole lot mixed in here other than, you know, medevacs, maybe some mines, stuff like that. I'd really like to see Cyclones, but honestly I'm not sure what their purpose would be. By the way, these mutas did take some hits from these mines, so kind of an interesting rally point just to get those wasted right away. Good for the Terran player, obviously bad for the Zerg. But here's an interesting little development. This is a Hydralisk den, and Hydralisk dens can definitely transform into those Lurker dens, which I've been saying for quite a while can probably be a pretty viable thing. And yeah, this is going to be a Lurker transition here immediately. And what I think this is going to do for the Zerg, especially against Bio compositions, it's going to be really good for keeping the Bio at bay. This is a fair number of missile turrets, by the way. Trying to land a third base. This Terran's actually been fairly slow about getting this third base established, and I think that's mostly just because their openers just got crushed really hard. They opened up with that Cyclone, which did nothing. They put out some Hellions, which did nothing. So they've been kind of stuck in this two-base setting here for quite a little while. But what I was going to say about the Lurker Den is that Lurkers can be a new way to kind of control territory against Bio armies. Considering you can upgrade these guys' range to 9, it basically means there's no way that Bio can ever approach it unless they just want to get absolutely shredded. So it'll force a lot more multitasking from Bio players, such as multiple drops and stuff like that. They won't be able to just push all in one clump anymore. So I'm really curious how this is going to work out. So this is basically going to be kind of a new age Legacy of the Void Lurker type of play. You can see these 6 Hydras on the way are likely going to get morphed into Lurkers as soon as this finishes. But on the other side, the Terran player is playing a pretty normal style. A lot of Marines, some medevacs here. Oddly, no Widow Mines, so this is almost reminiscent of Wings of Liberty style. And here's a tech lab being added on here. I'm not sure what this is going to be for, maybe for Thors, maybe for tanks. But of course, if the Zerg player does get these Lurkers, it's going to force the Terran player to change anyway. So even though it looks like the Terran player is going for very normal stuff. By the way, these mutas fly into this once again. So I don't know what these mutas are doing, kind of just a little bit suicidal, I guess, trying to run in there and take some hits from the Widow Mines. But yeah, so what I was saying is that if the Terran player is just running normal Bio stuff and they run into Lurkers, it's going to force them to adjust in one way or another. And that's why you see these tanks start to come down here. And I'm not totally sure what the Terran player knows. And it doesn't seem like he knows a whole lot because he hasn't even seen the creep this far out, and I don't even think the Lurkers have moved off creep yet. So this should be interesting as the Terran player starts to move out. The Lurkers are definitely going to have to be in a good position here to force a Bio to have to disengage. He's just going to run right up in his face and start to burrow here. So you can see that Bio does try to target it down, but once these things land, those Marines just get absolutely wrecked. And these Lurkers are super strong, which we saw in another ZvT cast. But yeah, this is definitely going to be a big problem for the Terran if they keep trying shenanigans like that. The Mutalisk basically being put out to pick off medevacs. And you can see the Terran players trying to go ahead and grab some of these Lurkers, but once they burrow, this Zerg just basically says, yo, this position is mine. And if you want to stick around, your Marines are just going to get absolutely dominated, and that's what's happening so far. Still, the Zerg is not too far ahead because there are some small drops here. The Terran's still doing okay. The Zerg is also trying to transition into Hive. This is one of the fastest Hives I've ever seen in TVZ before, so it looks like they want to encourage more Zerg tech, as the Zerg is getting pretty high up there. The Terran does just push up here, try to clear out these Lurkers. That's going to be a big deal with the new units here. Is if you're trying to clear this position as Terran, how do you actually do that? So I'm thinking maybe you mix in Banshees, maybe you mix in some other units that will help out with things like that. He needs to lift or repair the CC pretty soon, which he should be okay as he does go ahead and clear this out. dropping a mule here, but the Zerg still did considerable damage. So worker count is 63 to 47. But it's really interesting to see how this is all going to evolve. And I really like this Lurker play against Terran Bio. It's going to force the Terran to play different styles. He's going to get +1 mech here in just a second as you see that finishing up. The tanks are now out, so at least he won't get ran up and sieged on anymore. But you have to wonder how much this is going to change as time goes on. This is the Lurker range upgrade as well, and Crackling upgrade as well, so both new things from, Legacy of the Void. These Lurkers will have 9 range, which is really considerable. It'll kind of keep them safe from a lot of the Marine and Marauders from just running up there and killing them. So Lurkers are trying to burrow up in their face. The Cracklings get a full surround here, and you can still pick up in the medevac, so that's definitely a saving grace here. So it doesn't lose too much, but still you don't want to get surrounded and get Lurkers burrowed right next to you, because that's going to be bad news bears. Terran's still stimming in here, does get a lot of these Zerglings here, and you can see he's actually mitigating this pretty well. Now these Lurkers are fairly exposed. At any time if these Lurkers burrow, though, the Terran's going to have to turn around. And you can see, even if he's trying to micro against these, they still do quite a bit of damage. So the Terran probably just getting a little bit greedy trying to run these things down. But still doing okay. As you can see, even though the Lurkers can burrow in your face, you can still do some tactics to force them to be in a bad position. Will these Lurkers actually reach across? I think they will. So he's going to burrow these Lurkers on the other side, and he's going to be able to poke at these SCVs every once in a while. So you can see, boop, does poke a couple of them every once in a while. And this is really, really annoying for the Terran. As he's thinking like, okay, I'm cool, I can go ahead and mine. And he rallies back here and he starts to get poked. He's like, oh, really? Wow, that's not very cool. So he's going to have to send a drop or something over here. And you could just drop like 4 Marauders on either side of these things, so they definitely can be picked off. And the Zerg, again, look at the range here on the Lurkers. This is why that range upgrade exists, so you can do shenanigans like this. So he starts to poke up here a little bit more. The one Marauder getting alerted, a lot of Zerglings just in case he tries to drop on them. So he does have a little mini siege here that the Terran player has to worry about, but at least he's not hitting the SCVs anymore, so the Terran can be a little bit safe. A little bit of a drop coming over here on the side as PseudoRandom's getting a lot of drones killed. Trying to respond to those with these Cracklings, and I guess he's just running for a Lurker Crackling strategy. Going to eventually go into Ultras. So we're going to see a lot of new stuff here from the Terran. And look how quickly those Zerglings just swallow up that attack. And that's because the Crackling upgrades have been increased to attack much faster. Almost double the upgrade timing from the previous iterations of StarCraft. So those Cracklings are a little bit more viable in these later game situations, especially if they're not running around with a lot of splash damage. So just those Marines and whatnot get absolutely wrecked. Here's some Ultras on the way, some more Lurkers on the way, but Lurker Ultra, I have no idea how this Terran player is going to deal with that. And to be totally 100% frank here, I don't criticize Blizzard too much for their balance patches, but this is one situation that I just don't know how the Terran wins right now. Lurker Ultra basically means that you can't approach, and if you do, the Ultras are better than basically everything that you have. So I don't really see a good avenue for Terran by this stage of the game, unless they're trying to transition into something like battlecruisers. You can see these Zerglings are doing okay, but Stim Marines and Siege Tanks are still pretty good units. But there's a lot of Ultras on the field right now, and the reason I say the Ultras are so good is because the Marauders got nerfed, and the Ultras now carry +4 armor off this chitinous plating. So once +3 and once the chitinous plating finishes, these Ultras are going to have 8 armor, which is insane, which means that the Marauders are barely going to do any damage. The Marines will literally do 1 damage per shot. So don't be surprised if these Ultras just walk right in here and just kill everything, because there's basically nothing on the field from the Terran that can do a lot to this. Maybe Widow Mines could do better, but you can see he either doesn't have any idea the Ultras are on the way, or he doesn't really respect how powerful these Ultras are going to be now. So the Lurker's starting to siege up here a little bit. Terran's struggling so hard just to even get this 4th base, which by the timer in the game you might say 14 minutes, that's okay. Here comes the attack right now. The Lurkers burrow, the Ultras just crash in. Look at all these Ultras just sitting in the green here, and there's literally nothing being done to any of these things. Like, one of them might die, one of them might, but probably not. Okay, you might, yes. See, and even if the whole army's chasing these things down, they just don't really take any damage at all. So Terran needs some really big help as far as dealing with these Ultras. This whole army is just getting totally slaughtered. The Ultras are in the red now, so he will have to back off, but at the same time, if you can heal these up, he still did some decent mining damage. Another random Ultra going to run in here, so let's see if the whole army is focusing on one Ultra, how long it takes to kill. And look at this. This is one Ultra versus the Terran's entire army, so that's pretty wild, guys. Like, I really hate to do stuff like this, but the Terran really needs some help against these things. These are super strong right now, and this is at least like, you know, just judging from the units that are firing, this is probably a good like 25 supply, maybe not quite that much, but a decent amount of units firing at a 6 supply Ultra, and it couldn't kill it after shooting it for, you know, 4 or 5 seconds. So that's pretty crazy, guys. But the Terran still trying to claw his way through this. Going to focus down this hatchery, so at least getting something done while there's this big siege going on. But once these Ultras start to crash in here once again, especially with these cracklings, I have no idea what this Terran's going to be able to do. Obviously, you can still run away from the Ultras, but once you get things mixed in there like fungal, and especially since Terran can never leave his base with this type of army on the map, I just don't know what they're going to be able to do for a little while. But Terran players focusing down some of these eggs. 2 Ultras are going to pop out of here. They could kill this army easily. The Terran just goes ahead and lifts up and gets out of there. Trying to transfer over to this 4th base, and I was going to say earlier, this 4th base is really late, and you might look at the timer and say, that doesn't seem that late, but he's mined out of his first 2 bases right now, guys, so this is really low econ for the Terran. Ultras coming in here once again. You want to get some Queens mixed in with these Ultras as well to start buffing the health of these guys, because they are sitting super low on health. Terran's just basically ducking and hiding against these units, because there's no way he's going to be able to push out on the map here. It's really just a matter of time before the Terran player dies, considering he can't get out of his base and he can't really secure a 4th. So the Terran player trying to do the best he can to stop some of these drops here. Ultra's going to come in and basically shoo this away. One Mulus picking away at these medevacs. Shouldn't be able to do too much because you can redrop these Marines and be able to fight that. So he does that. Mulus says, I gotta get out of here, and they turn around. But yeah, Terran player is basically stuck in their base for quite a while. The Zerg, and don't get me wrong, guys, I don't want to say the Zerg only won because these Ultras are imbalanced or ridiculous or something like that, but both these guys are relatively even level from what I can see. Just looking with my eyeballs, I can say that both of these players are pretty equal in terms of skill level, but the bottom line is I don't know how Terran's ever going to stop these Ultras, especially if they had things like medevacs to start to pummel at these things. Like, I think the best they could possibly do is Thors, but trying to get Thors on the field and trying to get them to target properly, considering there will be Zerglings and other random stuff in the army, it'll be a big struggle here from Terran. Look how hard it is to kill even just one Ultra. Just this one right here that I'm trying to select has been the one that's been targeted the entire time, and this army still can't do anything about it. So I just can't reiterate how hard this is going to be for Terran for a little while until they get some help on that front. Because nerfing Marauders and upping the armor from Ultralists is like, there's just no answer from the bio. You can even see, look how many hits these things can take. This army has basically been shooting the same Ultra for this entire time and nothing has happened. So, at least the Terran's finally able to secure another expansion. But their worker count is so low right now since they got that base invaded just a second ago. 13 workers for the Terran, and basically no real options. He does have 1,000 gas here, so I guess he could try to start getting out Ravens or something, but even still, it doesn't seem like it's going to do too much against Ultras. Terran's just trying to force a base trade the best they possibly can. With these drops, they can micro away from the Ultras for basically all day, so I guess that's their really only avenue of being able to win this game right now, is trying to just pick off enough hatcheries and trying to get the Zerg so far out of position and having to recover with these Ultras that they'll have a hard time dealing with that at all. So Mutos are going to come up here and to clean up this drop. The one Hero Marauder finally falls, but the Terran army is just looking so bare bones at the moment, and it's 180 supply to 107. So, like I said, it seems like just a matter of time before the Terran player is just dead. Especially since they're not running around with mobile detection. If you can get a couple of lurkers burrowed at these bases, there's so few scans available since he has to land mules to mine, that I'm not really sure how he's going to be able to deal with that effectively, especially considering he can just protect his one lurker with an Ultra or two, and there's not really too much of this army can do about it. I guess he could move up there with his tanks, but +3 on the tanks finally coming down, and you'd really like to see Thors mixed into this, because Thors are really going to be the only viable option against these Ultralists, considering the Thors are not really muted too hard by the Ultralist armor. They deal a whole bunch of damage by base, so the amount reduced from the Thor is actually pretty low, especially with this +3 attack upgrade. So it'd be interesting to see Thor versus Ultra, but I think that's going to be basically their only option right now. But again, the targeting on the Thor is going to have to be good, and it also seems like all the bio is basically irrelevant once those Ultras start to get on the field, because the best they could do is help against Zerglings, and maybe Mutas if those are mixed in as well. But I don't know why this Zerg player is hesitating so much to just go and end this game. We can see that the timer only runs for another few minutes. But I guess we're going to see the final bloody battle whenever it happens, and see the Terran kind of just fall apart here in just a second. But Zerg player is just basically getting some extra lurkers, adding some static defenses. Terran starts to get brave and move out of the map here, thinking that maybe they have a chance, starting to try to clear up some creep, and as soon as he realizes Zerg is coming, he just retreats immediately. So he's just trying to keep himself safe. By the way, Marauder Shell is just now coming down at the 20-minute mark, which seems a tad late. I'm not sure really what they're going to do because they don't actually affect Ultras. The best they could do is affect Zerglings, but you can see the Zerglings just sort of evaporate to those tanks. And losing Zerglings at this point is not a big deal for PseudoRandom because he can just refill on Hydras, or in this case, he'll probably just transform them into Lurkers. And again, this Terran's economy is just absolutely pitiful. 180 minerals per minute and only 50 gas, not even that per minute. Super, super low econ right now. And it's really just up to the Zerg to kill him, and I have to say, it should be happening sooner rather than later. But +3 for mech on the way. Still, +2 for the lurkers here, and I'm not actually sure how the lurkers scale. I'd be able to look at that and tell you guys, but the problem is that there are some UI bugs right now, and I can't actually tell what the attacks are if I hover over them. So hopefully they'll get that soon. Blizzard, fix the UI, please. I need the UI fixed. Alright. Terran player, it's just going to boil down to the Terran player eventually getting brave enough to start to push out on the map, and the Zerg player just crashing into him. This has been a while here, and this is going to happen a little bit in Legacy of the Void beta games because people are going to know the game is over, but still want to play so that they can experiment with the units that they have. Ultralisk is going to crash up here once again. So you can see him getting some pretty decent surrounds on this army. All the bile getting absolutely shredded. One Ultralisk falls, but there's plenty more where that came from. And there's really no way this bile is going to be able to stem the tides. You can see the tanks actually do pretty well against this, so I guess that's one big benefit from the tanks. And that's what you're going to want to mix in here if it's not Thors. So I guess tanks would be a decent answer, but still, they're not the greatest. I mean, if the Ultras get on top of them, then they can't wreck them, especially if they're on their own like this. Zerglings even can trade really well against those. So you can see, trying to get some surrounds here, tanks picking off quite a bit. But behind this, the Zerg's actually on pretty low econ. I'm surprised at how well the Terran has done as far as keeping this economy down. Ultralisk and stuff crash onto that tank once again. It's still double the supply for the Zerg, so even though the Terran actually won that battle reasonably well, the Zerg still has so many tools here. There's Mutalisk to harass, so Terran basically can't leave his base. Terran's going to have no mining here, like literally no income in just a second. So this is a one final desperation push here from the Terran. And the Zerg really just has to crush this one army and it's over. So the Terrans start to move up here. This is still a pretty reasonable force, so we'll have to see if the Terran's able to do anything with this. The Lurkers do burrow on the other side, and if you're smashed between Lurkers and Ultras, I'm not actually sure what you're going to be able to do there. So the Terran player just gets absolutely mopped up, which we were expecting for quite a while. Terran player says GG, and it is over. So PseudoRandom able to take that game. I guess we're going to have to see how all this changes. This is definitely something that's going to change in some fashion or another. Terran's either going to get a new unit to help him out with this scenario, or the Zerg's Ultra Armor is going to go away or something like that. Something's got to change because this was pretty absurd to see the Terran basically cornered the entire game with almost no options. So we're going to have to see what happens with that. But hope you guys at least enjoyed the cast. Hope you guys enjoyed seeing the new units and all their interactions. I'll be back with more beta games here in the near future, so stay tuned to my channel and subscribe if you'd like to see more. But yeah, I'll see you guys very soon. Take care. Thanks for watching.